My name is Teun. I'm 24, in perfect health, and live in the close ward of a nursing home. Why? I am 24, but not all my life. That's why I'm now going to start looking for answers for the future. In a 3-year journey across 11 countries and 4 continents, I look at how other countries deal with dementia and the people who have to live with it. And how can we shape society in the future for the people who so desperately need our attention, but whom we so often forget? Surely everyone, regardless of age or diagnosis, has an equal right to a good life, right?
Ja, ben je toch helemaal niet meer van enig nut.
Heeft u dat gevoel?
Ja. En dat is toch ook zo? Wat voor nut heeft het nou nog als ik leef?
Good afternoon and welcome to Human Forever. This afternoon we would like you not just to be spectators, well, we would like you to be co-creators of this conversation. And to do that, make sure that you've got both your app, your ESN app, and the phone ready, because we are going to ask you to use them to be part of this conversation that we want to have this afternoon. Let me ask you, first of all, what do you feel when I ask you, or I tell you, the word aging? Please use the QR code, and within the QR code, when you scan it on the Slido app, you will be able to see plenary. Press plenary, the red button, and tell us what you think when I ask you, or when I tell you the word aging. Good afternoon, Teun Toebes. It's a pleasure to welcome you. Teun is a renowned human rights activist, and his mission is to improve the quality of life of people with dementia. Actually, that mission is not too dissimilar from the mission that we have within ESN, which is to inspire social services leaders to improve the lives of people in the community. You experience what is to live like in a dementia ward for more than 3 years.
Yeah.
And you've also written a book, The Housemates, which I've got here with me. And if you haven't had the opportunity yet, please to have a look at it and read it. And also, you filmed Human Forever, which accompanied this book. And it's indeed a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon to discuss this issue around dementia and dementia care. When you were studying to become I told you the other day a nurse, but actually you corrected me and you said a care ethicist, you decided to go and live in a dementia ward. When you are looking at this cloud of words that we see here around aging,
Yeah.
and that experience you had, can you maybe take us through what you see here and some of the stories that impacted you the most at that time?
Yeah, of course. First of all, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to have this conversation with you together. And I'm sitting here with a different feeling than what I read when I look at the dia behind me, because the word fear is very big in our imagination when we are thinking about aging. And I focused on dementia because I started living together with dementia. And the way we perceive dementia could be an extract from the way we look at aging itself. So also the way we look at dementia, it very often makes us anxious. So we have a very stigmatized view on aging, but also on dementia. And I had the same view when I was 17 years old. I had an internship to become a nurse. I didn't want to go to a nursing home because a nursing home is not the place to be, especially not if you're young. It's not a sexy place. So I went there for my internship, and I had, on the one hand, an amazing time because I met beautiful people, but on the other hand, also a very confronting time because I asked my colleagues, would you like to live here yourself? And then surprisingly, most of my colleague nurses, they said, hell no, if I get dementia, I want to live in a different way. So one person said, for instance, I want to buy a house together with friends and start living there. The other person said, I hope that I can live together with my kids. And another person said, I would love to not live anymore. So no one was dreaming of a future in a nursing home. So to me, that was the reason to start living there myself, to learn from close up. What can we learn from people living with dementia by listening to their experiences? And I also brought a small example of this because I would love to make it a bit more personal, because speaking about dementia is often very much about the impossibilities and what's not possible for people. So I hope the clicker works, and otherwise we should go to...
There you
this
go.
one, yeah. Because at the age of 21, I decided to start living on the close ward of a nursing home together with people living with dementia. Very often people in the latest stages of their life, and Ellie is one of them. Ellie is one of my housemates during the 3.5 years I lived in a nursing home. And we both had the same type of room. So my room was 21 square meters. I had a shared toilet with her, a shared bathroom, and very often Ellie and I were together. So we were going out. When Ellie was alone, she was sometimes feeling anxious, and we were just having closeness together. It was not that we were constantly amusing each other. It was about a feeling of being close to each other. There is only one big privilege I had in the 3.5 years I lived there, and that is that I had the code of the door, and that's the code 2017. So I had the possibility to leave the close ward, but when I came back and I heard from the carer, Teun, could you please be less close to Ellie? So the reaction was, Ellie is feeling anxious maybe, or she's feeling alone, and because of this, she starts crying. So the reaction from the carers was, could we prevent her from crying, and could we ask Teun to be less close to her, so she's not dealing with those feelings. On the one hand, you can understand, right? You can understand that people ask this from you, but on the other hand, it's also very difficult, because I think now it's very beautiful if you are 92 years old and you're still able to feel sadness, you're still able to have those emotions, and you're still allowed to be a human being. And that's, in the end, what also hopefully today our conversation is going to be about the humanity within the systems we have created.
Can I ask you, because this story reminded me when I was reading the book, well, maybe we tell the audience as well that we met each other because we were speakers at the conference on aging in Copenhagen last year during the Danish presidency. But one of the things that I realized is how often you challenge this obsession, and actually it links very well with the story you were telling us with the care worker, with safety in care systems, isn't it? Where do you think that public administrations unintentionally cross the line from protecting people to actually controlling them?
Yeah. Well, let me say this very clear to you, especially if you are designing systems. We can't create safe systems. Risks are inherent to everyone's daily life, and also, especially speaking about care, it comes with risks. Because if we create systems which are having zero risks as the outcome, we also create systems where life is not a central point of it. So Speaking about quality, we often focus on quality of care, and the question is, what do we see as quality of care? Is good care safe care? Then our system might work, or is it more about quality of life? And if yes, if it is about quality of life, what does it mean and what does it ask from us to redesign the systems and to maybe accept those risks which are part of everyone's daily life? So also if you're living with dementia, life comes with risks.
Isn't quality of life about getting people's safety, in short?
It can be, like, safety can be an aspect of what's a good life for you, and it can be a responsibility of, for instance, a care institution. But if you are focused on avoiding all possible risks, then life will be zero. So that's what I have seen so often in the care home I was living in. By all the good intentions, we create systems which want to prevent risks like falling, like choking, like not eating enough. So it's the medicalization of ordinary life. And that's what we could prevent for the better. Because if we listen to people like Ellie, it is not only about being kept safe. Huh? What do you value the most in your life? Is it safety or is it about more? So safety is an aspect, but it is not the leading aim of what good care can be.
Many people then would ask themselves whether freedom and safety can coexist. Is it actually possible?
Yeah, it can. And I will show an image of a very safe, wait. Can we go to the slide with the closed door? Yes, this one. Because I want to show this, Alfonso. This is the place I was living in Utrecht, the city in the Netherlands. To me, this is the product of our culture. So if our culture focuses on control and safety, then we might, for instance, create a closed ward where all people with dementia are being protected, while not everyone has to be protected. So because you are part of a target group, the system makes the choice for you, and you are protected from going outside. And
well, not everyone is the same.
Exactly, and the paradox in this is very interesting because this might seem like a safe system. You close the door and then people can't go out. But the result of this is that people are sitting on their chairs, that people don't walk anymore, that people are losing all their physical capabilities. So indirectly, we make people more dependent, because if people start walking again, they have lost their muscles, and then the risk to fall is even bigger. So it's about changing the narrative on how do we define quality in the context of care.
Like here, we chose a venue where we've got loads of stairs to encourage activation and make sure that we are go all up and down the stairs.
And everyone stays up, so
and
it's very
exactly,
interesting.
and we were very concerned because most of you stayed up there instead of coming closer to us, despite us wanting to be so open. But this, what you mentioned, is so important because we are going to now turn to you again, and we are going to ask you a question. If we can have again the slide up. We want to ask you whether you feel that residents with dementia should be allowed to leave a care home alone. Whether you feel yes, whether you feel no, or whether you feel only sometimes. And we want you to give honest questions, because we don't know, this is anonymous, therefore please be honest and tell us what you feel. And then after that we'll comment on those. We can see them coming, Teun. There you've got only sometimes is, most of, we've got only sometimes, we've got no, and afterwards, and then we've got yes, quite low. Yeah. What do you feel when you look at these results?
Well, it makes me very hopeful that at this moment 48% says only sometimes, because that means that there is space to make a choice. And the reality is that very often living with dementia in a care institution doesn't give a choice. So because you are part of the target group, your freedom is valued in a different way. Let me say this very clear. In the end, the movement to open the doors of the closed ward is about human rights, and those are individual. In the Netherlands now, over 500 care homes have opened their closed wards. It can't be like this, that in the Netherlands, people with dementia, even in the last stage of their life, have the possibility to go out, and in another country, for instance, Belgium, it is not a possibility. So we have to work collectively on this movement. But this is, in the end, about a shared responsibility. So what did we need? We need laws for this. We need a care inspection, which is helping to push this movement. But we also need people in practice. And I'm sure there are so many people in practice, also in the countries you are serving in. So many people are working on the movement in order to improve the quality of life.
You said that only sometimes gives hope, that there is a space there. Could you maybe think of a personal story that maybe could challenge some of the perceptions? We also have a sizable number of people who said no. So I wonder if we could give some personal stories that could help us maybe look at things in a different way.
The fact that we speak about residents with dementia, the number of people living with dementia is rising massively. But what we shouldn't do is we shouldn't problematize the people with dementia themselves. Because if we listen better to people with dementia and understand the needs, the same needs as ours, then it is not about making them the problem, but about making our perspective, about our approach the problem. So this 30% of people who says people with dementia should not go outside, my message to them is, I don't say that safety of people with dementia is not important, but we can't create a care system where the easiest solution is to lock the door and prevent people from going outside. Like, what would your own wish be? Would you rather stay inside, be prevented from all possible risks, or would you rather have a dialogue about which risks can we accept and which risks are needed for you to experience in order to have a good life? And I think this is a beautiful example, because this is an example from the Netherlands where people with dementia could go outside because they had a vision. If people have a feeling of security, if people feel safe, then people don't want to leave. If people feel safe, people don't want to leave. If you are now my resident, my housemate in a nursing home, and you have the feeling that you are locked up, I know for sure that every one of you felt the door handle within an hour. Might it be open? If we create places which feel like a home, people have less need to go outside. And if people still have the need to go outside, it's an exception on the rule. And the question is, when it comes to policy, is policy there to make collective policies for the exception on the rule? Or should we look at this differently? So I think this is a very interesting example, but opening the doors of the closed ward is the most easiest we can do, because it's just a different way of decision making. It's saying yes to opening the doors. The most difficult is keeping the doors open when the first incident occurs, because the reflex of a system will be the question, who is guilty? Whose fault is this? People might feel anxious, and we might come back to the system which want to collectively protect people. It happened in the Netherlands that there was a person living with dementia, and she walked outside the care home, and she didn't come back. She was found by the police the next day, and she passed away. And of course, this is very sad for the family, for the carers, but the biggest wish of this woman was to have the possibility to go outside. She said, I have walked my whole life. Walking is part of my identity. It's part of who I am. The alternative was to lock her up behind this code of the door. Then she might get aggressive. Then she might feel anxious because this is not who she is. And then we start medicalizing her ordinary needs we all have as a human being, to have a feeling to go out, a feeling of freedom, how big or small this feeling might be.
I don't know if our audience may have, or some of our audience may have changed their views, but I would like to touch upon, if you can please tell us, have your views changed at all, or your views continue to be the same? Please do that while I ask Teun. And actually, there you go. No, for most of them, but some of them have. So that's interesting. But your book and your talks frequently show somehow how younger generations are disconnected from aging and from dementia. But you show us that meaningful relationships can actually exist beyond the diagnosis itself. What do you think that younger generations are missing because we separate aging and dementia from everyday life?
Yeah. I think in the end, this message is not about dementia. This message is about the way we are living together. In what kind of society do we want to live in? And the fact that the story of a young boy living in a nursing home is often seen as a very cute story is also part of the problem. Because why is it so special that someone from the younger generation lives together with people with dementia? It actually says so much about the way we have lost the connection to each other. We have lost the way we are living together. The fact that you have to live in an institution specifically for people with dementia, to be able to live with people with dementia, says a lot. So I strongly advocate for not only building more nursing homes, but for reshaping the way we organize neighborhoods, for building more social forms of living. And the fundament to this is, in a social form of living, someone's care indication or diagnosis is not the entrance ticket. Because if you are excluded from society and you have to live in a facility with people with all the same care indication, you can't expect people to be living together. And in the end, if we listen deeply to people with dementia, people want to matter. People want to be seen. People want to be heard. Those needs are universal. Those needs are the same as people from my generation. So there's a huge responsibility for all of us to create more possibilities for people to live together. And don't make this a fancy intergenerational project which stops after 2 years, because then we start working with contracts. I saw it happening in the Netherlands. We have like an intergenerational living project. And then we ask the students, please, can you live together with all the persons here? You get 200 euros, you have to pay 200 euros less in exchange for 20 hours voluntarily work a month. Living together is not voluntarily work.
But at European level, people love European
But
projects,
you
those type of projects.
Yeah, but you shouldn't
It's so hard
quantify
to get rid
living
of this.
together. You shouldn't quantify living together, because living together is not about entertaining people. If we are living together, Alfonso, and I take you to an amusement park, it's not real living together. It can be, but it's not always the same. Living together, in our case, could also be that we just sit in the same room, that we don't talk to each other, but that we have a feeling of being connected.
The bond.
And
that is
we
created.
can't quantify this. So it asks a lot from the systems we create.
I would like now to ask again our audience some key, we've prepared some key statements. The first one, I don't know if we can get it up there. The first one, again, going back to the question of safety, because we saw how important that
safety.
is. We love safety, don't we? Safety matters more than freedom. So tell us, yes, no, or sometimes. Well, sometimes it does. Sometimes it does, we can see. So it's not, we don't have a black and white view there. So what do you feel about the answers that we got there?
I think I'm very happy with sometimes, because it gives space to a dialogue about this.
To change things.
I had beautiful experiences of living in a nursing home together with my housemates, with Ad, with Tineke, with Ellie. But on the other hand, I also faced a system where we often define the collective safety as more important than the individual's quality of life. So living in a care institution has different paradoxes. On the one hand, collective versus individual, and on the other hand, safety versus quality of life, which means accepting risks. If we don't have a conversation about what is the right thing to do, then systems will automatically answer in protecting the collective. And we should really be aware of this. I'm the last person in this room who says safety is not important. But it is about a balance between safety and quality of life. And that's why I think this is a very beautiful answer. Sometimes safety is part of good care. But freedom can be part of good care as well.
Let's go into the next one, because the next one relates to something we saw earlier on in the initial video that opens the session.
Yeah.
People with dementia cannot contribute to society. And we've got no, yes, and sometimes. So we've
very
got
funny,
some answers there. How do you
Alfonso,
feel
because
about
everywhere in the world, there's a movement going on in Australia, in the United States, but also in Europe, that the discussion about opening the closed wards is getting momentum. So we have to build forward on this. But I also very often hear the same reactions from people, especially from politicians. And that's the reaction, yeah, but Teun, we can't open the closed wards because what if? What if people massively go to the highway? What if people massively walk in front of a bus? Oh. This is a stigmatized view. Because if we look at it through the perspective of reality, people are not massively walking out if you open the doors. Because having a feeling of freedom goes beyond a closed or an open door. You can have a feeling of freedom in a system where the door is closed, but also the other way around. In the end, it's about the culture. How do people look at you? What is the human view people have about dementia, about living with a disability, about being a resident in a care institution?
We've got a third statement around care systems. Care systems are designed around humanity. Yes, no, or sometimes. What does our audience think? Well, how do you feel about that? I believe that most have a very clear view on this.
I would love to ask people questions. Why do you believe it's no? Why do you believe it's sometimes? And why do you believe it's yes? Because it really depends on the perspective you have. If you are, for instance, a carer, like my colleagues, I still work in the practice of care, then you might say yes, because your intention is to show humanity or to bring humanity in the work you do. But we can't build systems on good intentions. Only good intentions don't lead to quality of life. It's about what do we do with the intentions we have. So I don't think our care systems are designed around humanity. I think they are designed around, for instance, a comfort, about the question of responsibility. They are designed around avoiding risks for the organization. And at the same time, I do say there is a lot of humanity in our care systems. So we also have to see this. I would love to show a picture, if that's okay.
Please.
Can we please go to the picture with the living room? Yes. And then the one before, because it looks quite similar. You might say this is designed around humanity because it might look like a home. But when you look at it through a different perspective, you might say, oh, it also looks a bit like safety because everyone has the same type of chairs. Why do we all have the same type of chairs? Because of safety. Because if people need help to get out of their chair, yeah, you need to have a strong chair. Why do we have, for instance, biodynamical lighting in the ceiling? It's because of comfort. So people don't have to turn off or on the light. So because of that, we make people apathetic. We make people, we don't give people the possibility to take initiative. Or if you see, for instance, we don't, the floor is completely flat. Sometimes at home you see the same rhetoric that we take away things from people's floor because we are afraid that people fall over it, the fall prevention. An ethical question is, if you are living in this home and you're 97 years old, are you allowed to break a hip, to get a hip fracture because of the thing standing on the floor? Or do we make the choice for people to take it away, the risks, and because of that we are institutionalizing someone's home? And I don't say this is good or this is wrong, because this is about the conversation I would love to have.
We've asked lots of questions, but we also have our app. I was wondering if our colleagues from AV at the back, are there any questions that have been sent through the ESN app? And if so, we've got 8 minutes left before we close this session. So I was wondering if there are any questions, and we've got some questions here that we can see. So the first question is, how did relationship evolve over time, living with them?
The reality is that in the Netherlands, people live in the nursing home in only the last stage of their life. So all my housemates passed away with who I was living with. At the same time, with many of my housemates, I developed a very great relationship. And it was a relationship based on reciprocity. And it was also a relationship based on friendship. So it was not that we constantly had to laugh to each other. It was just a normal friendship as you could have with people around you as well.
How did you start this project? This question about the
I
project
love the
itself.
question about funding. Who is asking the question about funding?
Funding, privacy, and different concerns.
It's such a systemic question. Like, I will say, who is here in a political role? Like alderman or something else? Yeah. I have a message for you because speaking about funding, I think it's so non-inspiring. If we talk about realizing systemic change, and you are a politician, and the reality is that you face a shortage of, for instance, money, and your answer to the shortage is we need more, the question we should ask then is, does more automatically lead to better? So I strongly believe it is not only about more money, it is not only about more staff, it is about what do we do with the resources we have. So coming back to the funding of this living together with people with dementia, I didn't write a project plan. I just asked the CEOs of the care organization a question, can I live in a nursing home? And they said yes, because no one ever asked the question. And yes, in the 3.5 years I lived in a nursing home, not a single communication officer was looking with me over my shoulder. So a huge shout out to the organization because they gave the trust and they gave the support to do this. All media could come because also the care organization said we need to tell a more honest story about living in a nursing home. Dementia is not a care problem, dementia is a societal issue. So we need to break this open. We need to tell a different story. And because of that, we don't have a shortage of money. We don't have a shortage of rooms. Some rooms are empty in nursing homes in the Netherlands. We have a shortage of humanity. And that's what all of us could bring into the system.
There was a question about the residents, whether they questioned that your presence there and that you were so young.
Yeah, of course, people were questioning it, and it was sometimes also very difficult and lonely because I can also imagine that many carers, for instance, thought, what are you doing here? Like, you're 21 years old, why are you living in a nursing home? And I didn't have another place to stay at, so it really was my home. But for my housemates, it also became normal. And I remember like a moment with Ad, for instance, we had a routine. So every time I left the care home, I gave my keys to him. And he was always protecting my keys. So he was taking care of my keys when I left. And when I came back, I went to Ad. I said, Ad, may I please have my keys again? And he said, okay, that's okay. And he walked to his closet for his clothes. He took my keys and he gave it to me. So because of this small routine we had, he had something to take care of. And being able and allowed to take care of something or someone, it's a universal human need. And this really builds those relationships with reciprocity.
We are coming to the end, and I think it's important because of the context in which we are. If you could redesign care completely from scratch for the next generation, without the rules that we've got today, the buildings, the systems, what would it look like? What would you say should disappear first?
May we please go to the dia with Jeanette on the bed? Because I think Jeanette is a really beautiful example of questions we should ask together, collectively. Even though it might not always feel like this, also we all are living in a world with lots of privileges. Especially I come from the Netherlands. We have a care system. If you look at being wealthy through the lens of economically wealthy, we spend a lot of money on care. So a nursing home receives over 100,000 euros per person a year. Also in the Netherlands, the answer sometimes is, we need more money. More money doesn't automatically lead to a better quality of life for people like Jeanette. It is about what is the rhetoric in our system. What need are we answering? And I will give you 3 concrete examples which illustrates the example of being focused on quality and control. If you have a risk to choke, for instance, like Jeanette, if you drink something and you choke, we might send an email to the speech therapist, and the speech therapist will come for a risk analysis, the magical word risk analysis. And if you have a higher risk to choke, you might get thickener in your drink. If you might have a risk to fall, then we might ask the physiotherapist for a risk analysis. If you have a higher risk to fall, we might give a walker, a wheelchair, or a hip airbag. And thirdly, if you have a higher risk to not eat enough, you might feel stressed, you don't recognize the environment, then we might ask the dietitian. And the dietitian comes, it's a lovely woman with great intentions. She does a risk analysis, and if you don't eat enough, we call it a low intake. And because of this low intake, we might give you protein drink. A small white bottle in front of you, Nutri drink, it's also called. I don't say that those products can't be useful. I don't say that the people, the dietitian, the speech therapist, the physiotherapist, the nurse, that they can't be useful. But what I do say, if we assume that those products and people automatically lead to a better quality of life, without asking people themselves, what do you want? What do you need in order to have a good life? Then the system is not answering the needs of people like Jeanette. Mm-hmm. Even though we say that we are focused on person-centered care, or we are focused on providing quality of life, facilitating quality of life, our system automatically protects people. And then we are focused on quantity instead of quality. Jeanette here, to come back to her, is laying in a hospital bed. Not every resident of a care home needs a hospital bed. Why do we see having a hospital bed available as part of quality? We make people more dependent, and we spend a lot of money on those products without them providing a better quality of life. So my message to the future is to reflect on all the possibilities we have, to don't see products always as the only answer, but to position people like Jeanette, people living with dementia, in a better way in discussions about what is a good quality of life for you.
Thank you very much, Teun, for being with us this afternoon. Thank you very much, our lovely audience, for your participation. And rather than doing a summary, what I think is important is to leave our audience with a question. The question is, what would you do differently after tonight? Thank you.
Thank you.